Behind the curtain, a pigeon was desperately flapping its wings. Seizing the moment, the boy rushed to the window, pulled it open with all his strength, and set the bird free. But as soon as he turned around, a group of bullies cornered him. They first threatened him to catch the pigeon back, then smashed his stationery as punishment. His eyes fell on the broken flower on his desk, and despair filled his heart. Just then, from the classroom window came a soft, enchanting voice. Curious, he stepped closer, but the figure vanished in an instant. Soon after, an orphanage staff member arrived, telling him that a kind lady was waiting in the principal's office. To his surprise, the woman wanted to adopt him. For the first time, the boy's heart lit up with hope for the future. But that hope was quickly crushed the moment he arrived at her home. His new foster father, Alec, showed nothing but coldness. The stern look on his face terrified Thomas. Though his foster mother, Meryl, offered comfort, he remained cautious and fearful. He dared not get too close to Alec, nor even step freely into the house. When Meryl noticed his nervousness, she gently held his hand and showed him around. Though the house wasn't big, her warm touches made it feel cozy. At the end of the hall was Thomas's new room. Knowing the island's weather was unpredictable, she had prepared a yellow raincoat just for him. Alec, too, had built a blue wardrobe before his arrival, and Meryl had even sewn him a set of pajamas. Sitting on the soft bed, Thomas felt, for the very first time, what it meant to have a home. Excitedly, he put on his new pajamas. At that moment, Alec entered. He meant to comfort the boy, but to Thomas, the sight was frightening. He couldn't raise his head, couldn't find his words. Alec wanted to say something, but in the end, he turned away in silence. Later, once Thomas had rested, Meryl brought him to the kitchen, patiently teaching him how to cook. To her delight, Thomas learned quickly. Yet Alec's sudden presence once again unsettled him, and in panic, he dropped the pan. Instead of anger or blame, Meryl calmly reassured him it was okay. That evening, as heavy rain poured outside, Thomas stood hesitantly before a puddle. Meryl stepped out, half teasing, half serious, and asked, "Don't you know what puddles are for? How can you resist? Come on then. Is it really him? I know he may look cold, like that old clunky robot, but underneath, there's a tender heart. One day, you'll see it. I promise you. Now come on." At dinner, Meryl deliberately tried to start conversations to bring the two closer. But Alec sat there with a stern, icy face, while Thomas remained timid and silent. The gap between them felt impossible to bridge. Helpless, Meryl decided she had to talk to her husband first. She explained that Thomas had been through a painful past, which left him overly sensitive to everything. All she asked was that Alec give the boy more time to adapt, but when Alec spoke of Thomas, disappointment clouded his face. He had expected Meryl to bring home a strong, brave child, not a timid little coward. What Alec didn't realize was that Thomas, unable to sleep, overheard every word. From that night on, the boy kept even further away from his foster father. One day, as Alec prepared to head out to sea, Meryl suggested that he take Thomas along, hoping they could bond. But no matter how she called, Thomas wouldn't answer. Both Meryl and Alec knew he was hiding just behind the door, yet they also knew he wasn't ready to step out of his world. So they didn't push him. After Alec left, Meryl casually walked to the storeroom, and sure enough, Thomas peeked his little head out like a burden had just lifted. Gently, she led him to the seashore, where she mimicked the calls of seals. Curious, Thomas tried to imitate her, but no matter how hard he tried, nothing happened. Meryl encouraged him not to give up and corrected his pronunciation. Finally, the ocean rippled, and more seals surfaced from the water. Meryl smiled and told him of an old legend. Seals had a special gift. They could find the souls of the departed and carry people's messages to them. Hearing this, Thomas bent down, his voice soft but sincere. "Please tell Grandma. I really like it here." Meryl's eyes welled with warmth. For the first time, she felt truly relieved, because this meant that fragile little Thomas was finally beginning to accept his new home. While the other children played happily outside, Thomas hid in the storeroom, watching longingly. He envied the world beyond but couldn't bring himself to take that first step. When Meryl suggested introducing him to other children, he panicked and hid behind the haystacks. But Meryl understood his fears and never forced him. Perhaps because she was always by his side, Thomas eventually dared to step out of his world, and discovered it wasn't as frightening as he had imagined. The neighbor's 2 children welcomed him warmly, taking him out to play and even showing him their secret hideout. At first, timid Thomas was so scared that he fled. But over time, he grew braver, joining in their adventures. His greatest fear, however, was school. Memories of being bullied at the orphanage haunted him, and on his first day he was especially nervous. Yet here, things were different. Most of the children were friendly, and even though a few mischievous ones teased him, many others were eager to be his friend. For the first time, Thomas felt a strange but comforting warmth. The moment school ended, he rushed home, excited to share his joy with Meryl. But waiting at home was an unexpected visit from orphanage investigators. They wanted to confirm his decision about staying with the family. Without hesitation, Thomas declared that he wished to remain here, yet the investigators explained that every family member had to agree. His eyes drifted to the blank line on the form, the spot where his foster father's signature should have been. He remembered Alec's angry face the first time they met and realized his chances of staying might be slim. Heartbroken, Thomas wandered to the shore, confiding his sadness to the seals. Meryl followed quietly and listened as he poured out his feelings. He told her that, from the moment they met, he had already seen her as his true mother, and now he wished he could protect her as his own. Meryl smiled gently and asked, "And why not?" "That would make me very happy too." From that day on, Thomas began to change. He grew brighter, bolder, even Alec noticed. He no longer avoided adventures, and he no longer feared being alone with his foster father. One morning, when they went to collect fishing nets, Thomas spotted a lone baby seal. He felt an instant connection, sensing its hunger and loneliness mirrored his own childhood. Determined to save it, he begged Alec for help. Alec explained that caring for the seal meant feeding it every day, without fail. Thomas promised with unwavering conviction, his eyes filled with determination Alec had never seen before. Together, they worked in unison. Alec gently held the seal steady while Thomas placed a small fish at its mouth. Their teamwork paid off. The little seal ate heartily. From then on, Thomas rose early each morning to feed his new friend, and slowly, the baby seal accepted him as family. Wanting to nurture his passion, Alec and Meryl gifted him a fishing rod on his birthday, so he could catch fish himself to care for the seal. The next morning, Thomas was bursting with excitement. Today, Alec was supposed to teach him how to fish. But before they reached the shore, a neighbor called Alec away for help. Alec told Thomas to wait by the beach and promised he'd return. As Thomas waited, the neighbor's little sister came running, suggesting he join her brother for fishing. But Thomas proudly declined. "My foster father will take me." He waited all morning. Alec never came. When Alec finally finished the chore, the neighbor pulled him away again, this time for drinks. Alec left with only a casual remark, "Wait by the boat." Overjoyed, Thomas thought he would finally get to sail. But time passed, and still, Alec did not return. Just as Thomas was about to give up, Meryl appeared. Not wanting him to be disappointed, she decided to take him out to see herself. It turned out that Meryl herself was once an orphan. She too had endured years of ridicule before finally being adopted at the age of 16. Perhaps that was why she had promised to become a rainbow in Thomas's life, shining hope into his world. But the atmosphere at dinner grew tense. Meryl, trying to protect Thomas, challenged Alec for breaking his promise, reminding him how much it would hurt the boy. Alec, however, shot back, why wasn't she thinking about her own health? Their quarrel escalated, leaving Thomas feeling more unwelcome than ever. Not long after, Thomas came home from school to find that dinner was not being cooked by Meryl. He soon learned the truth. Her long-term illness had flared up again, worsened by the exhausting fishing trip. She had to be hospitalized. To ease Thomas's fears, she gave him her most treasured red handkerchief, telling him that whenever he missed her, he could hold it close and feel her smile within it. While Meryl was away, Thomas stayed with the neighbors. Their house was full of laughter, but Thomas's face showed only worry. One day, a ragged peddler stopped by, carrying bundles of goods. Among them, Thomas noticed a colorful tablecloth. He imagined how much his mother would love it, but he had no money. After a moment of hesitation, he returned to his room and took out his most precious belonging, a comb left behind by his grandmother. To him, Merrill now mattered just as much. Willingly, he traded it away. Soon after, the neighbors took him to the hospital to see Merrill. But her condition had worsened. Thomas's heart ached as he tried to give her the gift, only to be pushed out of the ward by the nurse. He sat in the corridor with the priest, who began to pray softly. To Thomas, each word sounded like a farewell. Sensing something was terribly wrong, he broke free and rushed into the room, only to find his mother already gone, her face at peace. From that day forward, tears stained his cheeks nearly every night. The red handkerchief became his only source of comfort. Alec, too, was shattered. He drowned himself in alcohol, returning home late and unsteady. Thomas knew his mother would not have wanted things to be this way. Summoning his courage, he gathered his two friends and, in Merrill's style, prepared a table full of food for Alec. When Alec came home, he stared at the dishes in silence. Memory surged like a tide. Unable to face them, he fled outside, chain-smoking under the night sky. Later, Thomas woke to find him burning all of Merrill's belongings in a fire. Desperate, the boy tried to stop him, shoving him in anger as months of grief poured out. Alec lowered his head in silence, the weight of guilt crushing him. That night, Thomas ran away to the neighbors, who comforted him with kind words. Though he didn't fully understand, he felt a flicker of release in his heart. The next day, when he returned home, the adoption form still lay on the table, Alec's signature line blank. Thomas realized his time here was almost over. Before leaving, he walked to the sea and whispered his sorrow to the seals. "Please, ask Mama what I should do now." At that moment, a rainbow broke through the clouds. Thomas smiled through his tears. Merrill had once promised she would always shine on him like a rainbow. That night, he placed the red handkerchief in Alec's hand. "You need this more than I do," he said softly. Alec, exhausted, fell asleep with it clutched tightly. The next morning, Thomas was gone. Alarmed, Alec searched frantically until he spotted the boy adrift in a small boat. Storm clouds loomed, and the waves rose high. He shouted and ran, but it was too late. The boat capsized, and Thomas, who couldn't swim, vanished beneath the waves. Alec refused to give up. He scoured the island's waters until finally, on a jagged reef, he found the boy alive. In that moment of fear and relief, Alec realized the truth. Despite all their struggles, Thomas was already his son. Back home, Alec laid out the colorful tablecloth, the gift Thomas had bought for Merrill. The little house glowed with warmth once more. When Thomas anxiously asked how long he had before leaving, Alec slowly pulled out the adoption form and, right before his eyes, signed his name. A smile finally blossomed on the boy's face. In the film's final scene, Thomas sat on the shore with the seals. He pointed toward the man on the hill and whispered, "See that man up there? He's my father now." There were no grand battles, no dramatic twists. Yet, in its quiet simplicity, the story drew tears. Life may be filled with scars, but those touched by love will always grow toward the light.